What's the worst thing someone's ever done for a Klondike bar? Like high treason, murder, going to Arby's? Hey everyone, Cosplays from Trash here, and we're doing something a little we're doing two cool things today. Well, you may think they're not cool, but whatever. One, a couple months ago, a company named Mecrob reached out to me. I only had, I don't know, maybe 1,000 or so subscribers, so I was pretty skeptical that someone, especially an international company like this, would reach out in the form of a partnership, product review slash sponsorship. Well, you'll kind of get what I mean. But they have a pretty unique company, and I read a little bit more and was definitely interested. I've never been much of a hobby modelist, regardless if it's cars or little Warcraft models. Never really been my thing. I was a little confused when they sold models and modeling kits out of recycled materials, and they showed me some of their products, specifically this one, Minerva's Mercy. It's the spider. Mecrob takes industrial leftovers and turns them into art, sculptures, models, and they actually put a lot of work into doing this, and there's some kind of interesting lore that I'll get into in the second half of the video. I was pretty excited for a couple reasons. One, it's really exciting to see companies and larger organizations dive into a certain hobby in kind of the same way that I did. I got into cosplay, making things out of trash, and Mecrob's into modeling out of trash. There's not a much more sophisticated way to say that. Two, it was a free product. I'm going to give this away to one lucky patron. Product reviews where you get to keep stuff and no obligation to you. Thumbs up in my book. Point number three, as I said, I'm not really much of a modeler, so looks pretty fun to try out. I realized I don't have a lightbox. So we're going to make one of those. Before I get started talking about the lightbox and the little spider, I just want to give a huge shout out to all my patrons over at Patreon. I was about to say if I could just thank everyone every day, but that would be super annoying. I don't want anyone to thank me for something literally every day because I'd be like, yeah, you're welcome. I get it. But anyway, no, seriously awesome. I don't know how I'm going to splice this video up, so I'm going to make this first. You may be asking yourself, why is Kyle making a light box? It's been on my to-do list for a while, and they come in handy, and I have this green tub that was trash, so it's like, what else am I going to do with it? There's lots of really fancy light boxes that you can make, but all you really need to do is take a box, somehow make the insides uniform, preferably something black or white. It's best if you use something that's like black or white and something that doesn't really show any wrinkles, like this infinity paper here. It's actually just a large piece of sketch paper. End up cutting out holes on the side, putting tracing paper so that I had some diffused light, and bam, look, it's a light box. I know that I mostly make things out of trash, but really in my house, pretty much everything is secondhand or trash. I can't, literally looking around my living room right now, I don't think I've purchased anything in this room except for my Nintendo Switch. Most of the time when I see people advertise on their channels and podcasts, well, let's just say that I'm a little bit skeptical that people would really, like the products they're endorsing and getting paid to advertise. Sometimes it just seems too good to be true that it's like, oh, you really love this product that you're advertising? I always told myself when I started CFT, if I ever got any sponsorships or deals or partnerships or ads, I would be incredibly honest and I wouldn't ever try to lie about it. I don't know. It's not worth a paycheck. Making models really isn't my cup of tea, but I really appreciate that there's a company that actually offers making things like this if you are a modelist. Modelist? Modeler? I don't know the word. Pretty sure every model I've ever seen, including the car that my dad made me build when I was like 9, they're just kind of cheap plastic and it's obviously new, so instead of cosplays from trash, it's models from trash. Just like what I consider trash, Mecrob sources the materials from things destined for landfill and scavenges parts from a lot of things that people really don't need anymore. Keep in mind, trash isn't just the gross stuff you end up throwing away in trash cans. On an industrial scale, it's a huge problem, and there's a lot of really quote-unquote useful stuff that gets thrown out. Kind of on a smaller example, consider all the excesses that a small business office might produce here in the States. I saw this firsthand at one of my jobs where we had an unholy amount of office supplies and the technology had surpassed. We had a lot of things like floppy disks, and we just had a lot of supplies. It was incredible. It was insane. Even all the pens that we had, it's like, do we really need 37,000 ballpoint pens? No. So to an extent, most of it was quote unquote trash. Extrapolate that to an industry that produces things more than just office supplies, and you have, honestly, an ungodly amount of bolts, screws. I don't even know what to call everything. Just little bits and bobs and machine parts. Mecrob ends up getting a lot of those either from just excesses of those actual things produced, or sometimes they'll end up scavenging things and breaking down larger, waste to get some of the smaller materials out of it. Cosplay can be pretty wasteful. Pretty much every hobby can be pretty wasteful. So I don't know, the whole principle of don't throw things out and kind of find new life or something. I can respect it. If you want to hear a little bit more on Mecrob and someone's interested in their models, I know that they started back in 2012 and they started transforming all of this discarded, pretty much mostly hardware, into some pretty impressive stuff. This is a quote from Mecrob, so I don't want to mess it up. "We believe in the extraordinary power of creativity to breathe new life into everyday materials, turning the ordinary into the extraordinary." You see why I agreed to get one of their models and build it and make a YouTube video on it? I mean, again, I get to give it away, so it's like a win-win-win situation where like I got a cool activity to do, I get a prize to give away at a raffle, they get a little bit of advertisement. Thumbs up. Has invented so many stories, and as someone who has invented so many stories inside their head, they actually put a lot of work into creating all the lore behind it. So let me read a little bit about it. They have this thing called Cyber Meta World, where it's effectively a wasteland. And let me just read it so I don't actually mess it up. "In the world of cyber meta, new life has ceased to emerge, leaving behind a landscape of mechanical and electronical remnants. This realm is marked by chaotic reconstruction and endless recycling where nothing remains in its original form. As energy flows and shifts, every item undergoes constant transformation and evolution, reflecting the brand's ethos of perpetual reinvention. In this wasteland, every fragment seeks new life and purpose amid the ruins. The building blocks of life: oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, things like that. Imagine little spare parts are the building blocks of life, and they literally have this giant world. If they have a giant base, they have a couple robots, they have this one. That just like also speaks to my inner nerd, so it's like, that's cool. Specifically, Minerva's Mercy is like the first animal, quote unquote, animal that they made. One of the coolest parts about it is the glowing ball in the back. It's one of those where when you touch it, the plasma of the light goes to your fingers. That's cool. Obviously, I'm not trying to force anyone to buy anything they don't want. I mean, that goes for don't buy things that you don't want to buy. But if you want something, because wanting things isn't bad, maybe you look for a better solution to the things that you want. I mean, that's kind of why I started making cosplays out of trash. My goal was to make cosplays, and it's like, well, I have garbage. Maybe I can start from there instead of buying new materials. Man, I love trash. Anyway, I'm going to make a post about this on Patreon. It will only be available to the patrons of the tier Friends of Willard and Miss Norma Jean and above. Kind of as an extra perk, I just wanted to give, people that dedicate the support a little bit more financially, a little bit more voice in that. All the details will be on Patreon, but thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. I actually know what I'm doing. In the mail, I'm not going to throw it. I want to give the spider a name. Do you ever know when you're just surrounded by batteries? Like Helga or something.
What is under my couch?
It's not a real spider.